This is our time to lead the track.
When I stepped onto the track, I wanted to perform. I wanted to show the world and the people what's possible. Leadership isn't only about titles, it's about having the courage to step up to inspire change. Together,
we are breaking the limits of what women can achieve in sports.
It's very simple. When women lead, everyone wins.
We know that when women lead, we all succeed.
At the starting line, we are all equal and stand true to our beliefs and values. I am here to prove that women belong in every role, including the one behind the starter gun.
Policy shapes progress.
that is why women must be at every decision-making table. Together, we're turning gender equality from aspiration into reality.
He waka eke noa, we're all in this together.
We've come a long way in creating great gender equity. Let's keep working on this together.
We're world leading.
This is the time to lead the trend.
This is our time to lead on the track.
This is our time to lead the track.
This is our time to lead the track.
Good morning, everybody. Nice woo-woo there. Gonna start the morning with a good woo-woo. Happy with that, ladies? My name is Connie Henry, and I would like to welcome you to the 2025 Gender Leadership Conference, Lead the Track, Breaking Limits in Global Sports Leadership. It's great to have you all here in the Japanese capital. Now, the purpose of this conference today is to bring together visionary leaders, change makers, and emerging voices, women and men, to inspire, power, and equip women to lead at every level of athletics. By fostering inclusive dialogue, sharing innovative strategies, and building strong cross-gender, cross-cultural partnerships, this conference is about a united effort to break barriers, advance gender equity, and shape a more balanced, thus a more dynamic future for global sports leadership. Now, you will see up here on stage the Daruma dolls. These dolls are a traditional Japanese good luck talisman. What you do what you do with them, I think they're quite brilliant actually, is you set goals by colouring one eye. Goals, achievements, what you want to achieve. Once you have achieved it, you then colour in the other eye. Then it's complete, and it's a sign of gratitude and appreciation and achievement for the goal that you've set yourself. What we will be doing today is at the end of this conference, every member federation leader will take one of these with a concrete commitment to increasing female representation in leadership roles. Once you've achieved your personal commitment, we ask you in your personal time to colour in the other eye so that we know that actually we haven't just spoken about it, we've done something. Now, I'm honoured to welcome our first speaker to the stage, the President of World Athletics, Lord Sebastian Coe.
Connie, thank you very, very much for setting the scene this morning. I'm now going to embarrass Connie because it's sort of about 30 years ago that I first met Connie in a sort of quasi-sporting environment. And I knew that she was going places when she came out with the immortal words after I'd sort of introduced myself and made a rather lame joke about something. If you've got nothing sensible to say, please don't say it. And it sort of continued in that vein ever since. Thank you for the film. I'm going to, this is where my communications teams go a little bit grey about the gills, as they say. I'm going to slightly digress and leave the agenda because those of you who were in the Congress know that our last agenda item, last substantive agenda item, which you all voted on and supported, was the presentation of veteran pins. And it is inevitable that a few people couldn't make that occasion. Some were still traveling here, some actually had to leave. But one of those veteran pins, nominated by NACAC for her extraordinary work, not just on the track, but in her role as a federation president in one of the leading athletics federations on the planet, and of course her work as chair of the Gender Leadership Task Force was Stephanie Hightower. And I'm very pleased to give you this about 4 days late. There we go.
Oh, thank you.
And Mike Sands, our president of NACAC, is in the audience. So Mike's over there. Mike actually asked me to present it. He thought it was more appropriate. I agree with Mike on that. I've often been asked the question, and on a fairly regular basis, and I never think the question is best answered by the person that's being posed the question, and it's, what do you think one of your legacies, what is one of the legacies you'll be most proud about during your time as president of World Athletics? And I've always been a little bit coy about that, because I don't actually think it's for those people that are asked the question to actually answer it. But let me be entirely open with you. It is the work that we've done in this sport since 2015 around gender leadership. And it's not been superficial, it hasn't been totemic, it hasn't been about quotas, it hasn't been about box ticking. It's actually, in reality, it is what has happened. And I'm looking out not just on a sea of faces of friends and people that have distinguished and dignified themselves and our sport in so many different ways, but I'm also looking at another critical cohort in this room, and that is male advocacy. And I'm delighted to see so many of you from federations that are representing vice presidents and area presidents as well, and male presidents of federations. Thank you for being here, because your continued, ongoing, unflinching support is what makes so much of this possible. I hope in 5 years' time, certainly 10 years' time, nobody's actually having to say that. But at the moment, that is the reality. And look, I'm so incredibly proud of what we have achieved. And I look around this room and I see faces that are passionate and actually believe in this journey. And being here in Tokyo has really only reinforced my view about the importance and the role that women in our sport and beyond our sport can play. We have Yuko with us this morning. Where is Yuko? Yuko. You know, the very first president to hold the role as female to hold the role as president of the Japanese Athletics Association. I spent good time a few lunches ago with Mrs. Hashimoto, the first female president of the Japanese Olympic Committee. and that too is a big moment. And of course, she was the sports minister during the Tokyo Games. I have Jimena Restrepo here, the first female vice president of World Athletics, and delighted, Jimena, that you are, of course, here. And at the beginning of the competition, we were visited by Kirsty Coventry, the freshly minted new president of the International Olympic Committee, and the first woman, the first African, to hold that role. And there's a sort of recurring theme here, because this is a gift that keeps giving. Because, of course, it was the formidable governor of Tokyo, Mrs. Koike, who was so instrumental in all of us being here for these championships. And as you know, I went to see her in 2020. Again in 2021, we committed to taking these championships here as soon as we possibly could. The fact we did it within 4 years, I think, is an achievement that really should be saluted by all the stakeholders responsible for that. And again, you know, the gift that keeps giving, the Tokyo Metropolitan headquarters, the governmental headquarters, floor 2 and floor 41, is where our MOA museum is being housed, and of course where we launched the Ultimate Championships just the other night. So to those 4 women, a particular and very current thank you. When we embarked on our gender leadership journey as a key part of the reforms back in 2016, and in one way or another, you were all involved in that, whether as my council colleagues, new or members of the executive board, federation presidents, you will remember that journey. And we set targets, and we set a realistic time frame, and gender leadership sat absolutely at the epicenter of those reforms. Abby Hoffman, one of our speakers this morning, was one of the key drivers on that journey, giving up weekend after weekend to fly to London to actually make sure that constitutionally, historically, philosophically, we were doing all the right things and making sure that those reforms landed successfully and safely in the November, December of 2016. And for me, there was quite a sobering moment in 2016, and we'd already embarked on the reform journey. But if ever I knew there was a challenge that sat ahead of us, it was in 2016 when, like some of you in this room, I was at the European Athletics Championships in Amsterdam. And the European Athletics Association has a really good program. It's now probably 20 years old, but it brings young leaders together. And it encourages young leaders, male and female, in our sport, to think about careers after their active, often performance careers, to go into coaching, administration. Many have actually taken roles since I first met them in 2014 in Zurich, which was sort of the first year we ran the scheme. Many of them have taken roles within federations, even at presidential and general secretary level. We actually have a few in our own organization in Monaco. And I remember looking and discussing gender leadership, and somebody pointed out to me that at that moment, amongst 51, 52 European countries, there wasn't a single female president of a federation. And that was odd to me, because it was also fairly countercultural, and it didn't really seem to make a lot of sense in terms of narrative either. And at the same stage, actually, NACAC had many, many federation presidents that were women. Africa had more than a smattering. And it was Europe that was actually lagging behind. And actually, somebody reminded me, as I was making that bold statement, that Georgina had been elected president of the Irish Federation, but 6 weeks ago. So there was one at that point. And now, in 2018, when we were all in Prague for the General Assembly, I think I'm right in saying, Cherry, and you're now the senior vice president in Europe, that we had something like 5 or 6 women elected in one council meeting, in one Congress meeting, to the Executive Board of European Athletics. The same happened just a few months later. And it wasn't that it was constitutionally enshrined in some big overall plan. It was because everybody was beginning to understand the why. And the why was important. And it had to be meaningful, it had to be authentic, which it is. And look, don't take my word for this. Any theory about organizational structures will tell you that an organization that is diverse, inclusive, and runs along those lines and looks like the world and reflects the world that we live in will be, across virtually any metric you want to mention, you want to identify, will be 15% more effective. And if you think about what 15% means in a sport that talks often and freely about marginal gains, then you're leaving an awful lot of potential at the table. And I will say something that may be a little uncomfortable for some, but actually, had our previous councils been a bit more gender balanced, I think some of that intuitive insight that we didn't have at that time might have prevented us from making the decisions at an organizational level that we did. That's probably one of those what ifs, but it is my strongest belief that when we are trying to recruit young people into our sport and to be part of what we believe in, then they basically are going to make a very swift judgment. They're going to look at your organization, and it doesn't really matter whether it's a political party, a charity, an institution, a federation, a newspaper, a magazine, whatever it happens to be, they're going to make a pretty quick judgment. And it may actually be more subliminal than it is conscious, but they're going to look at your organization and they're going to say, does this look like the world that I live in? And if it doesn't, they're not going to join your organization. They may not even want to be a part of that sector. And so our responsibility is to continue to press and press at every level. So if we sort of understand the why, and I don't think any of us would be here today if we didn't understand that, I guess the next thing you want to move on to is the how. And what we did was textbook. Actually, it was better than textbook. We knew we had to measure progress at every level, not just at the top. We had to measure at every level and in every area, and I think we've done that. We organized face-to-face seminars. We created female role models who put their hand up and were prepared to stick their heads above the parapet and talk openly and freely about gender equity. We organized online seminars, slightly turbocharged, I have to say, around COVID, because we were able to tap into technology that most of us weren't able to even pronounce before we got into COVID, and to do it in a way that was hugely successful. Adil, the President of India, is here. He and his federation were actually at the forefront of driving some of those online courses. I remember joining them on many, many occasions, 1,800, 2,000 people, not uncommon on many of those courses, and they all had a focus around gender. And what we do now must be sustainable. We've moved far beyond a campaign. We're now in the second generation of elections and leadership, and we need to keep our collective foot to the pedal. We need our ambitions to be sharp, and the one thing that I believe that sets us apart, as I said in my opening remarks, is male advocacy. It's not just desirable, it's absolutely essential. And allyship, whether male, female, or organizational, is absolutely the key to our onward ambitions. So, in summary, the why must be meaningful, the how must be measurable, and the what must be sustainable. And we need to be actionable rather than aspirational. We must understand the new normal here, and it is the new normal, and it's the new normal for women in sport. We know we have more to do. The film finished absolutely on the right, with the right message. We've done a lot, we have more to do, and it is really only a start. And that's why I'm delighted that I'm here this morning. I'm delighted to sort of look at the progress that we're making. I'm delighted that we have a really lustrous group that will take us through this morning. Stephanie Hightower has been an absolutely essential ingredient in all this. When we set up this journey and we looked at what we were creating, we realized that, like most things, the world doesn't just sort of come to life or on a balance sheet or in a council chamber or through aspiration or ambition, however driving that is. It comes to life through reality. It comes to life on the court, the pitch, the training center. It comes to life in all aspects of our sport. And our leaders this morning have actually lived this journey. And the journey was about finding the right pathways, creating the right opportunities, and making sure that leadership was exemplary. It was from the front, and it was 24/7, and that's what you've got. So with Abby Hoffman, one of my esteemed council colleagues, a vice president, active in so many different ways in our sport, and a mentor and friend to so many of us in this room. Abby, thank you for being here. And Stephanie, thank you for doing what you've done. Continue to do it for us. I know you're under big professional pressures back in Columbus, Ohio. I make no other observations than that. But please, yeah, it's an interesting landscape. But just keep doing what you're doing. And to all of you here, thank you for believing in this. There's still a long way to go. But, you know, we will get there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Coe, for those inspirational words. And I think also thank you very much for your leadership in this space during your presidency. It really has been incredible what President Coe and the whole council have been able to achieve in such a short space of time. I would now like to welcome our next speaker to the stage, Yuko Arimori, President of the Japan Association of Athletics Federation.
Sorry, I'm so nervous. Thank you. Everybody, good morning. And dear President Cole, dear World Athletic family members, and dear friends, welcome to Japan and welcome to Tokyo. I hope you will enjoy the championships with amazing energy of the athletes and the spectators for the last 4 days. World Athletics Championship is very, very special, and I'm so honored to host it in Japan for the 3rd time by welcoming the top athletes from around the world. 3 months ago, they already told about that, but 3 months ago, I was elected as the President of Japan Association of Athletic Federation. And if we go back 10 years, nobody have thought that a woman will become a president of a sports federation in a very traditional country like Japan. This year, thank you. This year marks the 100th anniversary of our federation, and Tokyo 1991 is the place where my journey as an international athletes started. So I'm so honored to be standing here on this special occasion with my friends who believe in athletics as the mother of sports. So, thank you. So, this is my second time attending the Gender Leadership Conference after becoming a council member 2 years ago. When I attended this conference in Budapest, I could feel the energy that surrounded the room, and the continuity of that energy is important for the development of our future and our sports. I'm trying to run through the position that I hold, and in all the organizations that I work with. We echo the importance of the goals and missions that are discussed in this conference. Needless to say, I believe it is essential to create equal opportunity for men and women. Unfortunately, women sometimes are given fair chances to develop leadership skill. Although they should be given environment to build their capacities and enhance their potential. Culture should not be the reason for women to have less opportunity. And we should realize that all individuals have the power to grow and innovate, which is the same as our sports. When I was young, I was a runner, and I have never thought of becoming a leader of an organization. But my love for sports and my motivate to making our sports better have taken me to this position. I have always told myself, create your own opportunities and take advantage of those opportunities to grow yourself. Even when I did not have any major achievement during my athlete career, I always pushed myself to take on every challenge with full commitment. I believe that mindset is what led me to the position I hold today. Everybody has different dreams, and everybody lives in a different environment. But I hope we can recognize the same value through this conference. I am excited to be part of conference today, and I'm sure it will be an important opportunity to exchange ideas so that each one of us can get a hint to develop ourselves to play a role as a leader in different capacities. Let's enjoy this conference. Let's think about the value of gender leadership. And let's make this an opportunity for us to grow as our future leadership. Thank you very, very much. And please enjoy your stay in Tokyo more.
Thank you, President Arimori, and thank you so much for graciously hosting us here in Tokyo at these World Athletics Championships. Now, I'd like you to turn your attention to the screen for a recording by entrepreneur, Athlos founder, Alexis Ohanian. Alexis is a big supporter of this conference, but unfortunately couldn't be here today. And he knows firsthand what male allyship should look like, its impact, as well as its benefits.
Hi everyone, I'm Alexis Ohanian and I'm honored to be part of Lead the Track, Breaking Limits in Global Sport Leadership. I care deeply about this work, not just as an entrepreneur and an investor in women's sports, but as a proud husband and girl dad. I've seen firsthand how powerful female leadership is and how much stronger organizations and industries become when women have an equal seat at the table. To me, male allyship isn't about stepping in front, it's about stepping up and standing beside women and using your influence to make sure women have the same opportunities to lead and thrive. And that means listening and speaking up. One of the things that was so important as we were forming Athlos was to take the time to talk to the very best women in the sport of athletics. We called them up and I was very grateful. They were all willing to take the call, answer my questions, give me feedback about how we could build a truly revolutionary track and field league. And they showed up in a big way, and I think that's why Athlos has been so successful so quickly. We know many sports environments were designed by men for men, but that can change. Male leaders have a responsibility to dismantle toxic cultures and to help rebuild systems that are equitable and sustainable for women. And when women lead, everyone wins. Athletes, fans, sponsors, and the entire sport ecosystem. This was important to us. When we announced our big three at Athlos for our team-based track and field league, that was Gabby, that was Sha'Carri, that was Tara Davis-Woodhall, and every single one of them was announced not just as a partner and an advisor, but also as an owner. That's right, they're shareholders in this league. And all the women who are going to be racing in Athlos going forward are also going to be part owners. Because when we create that kind of alignment, you're not just building things for women, you're building them with them. And that kind of alignment is powerful. We saw that firsthand in building Reddit, and we think, why not in sport too? So here's my challenge. When you leave this conference, don't just commit, act. Measure progress. Hold yourself accountable and keep opening doors for women in leadership. The future of sport leadership, well, it's inclusive, innovative, and unstoppable when women and men lead it together. Thank you.
Inspiring and important words there from Alexis. So it's really important to recognise not just men like Alexis, but anybody who actually is committed to accelerating leadership roles for women. Now, our keynote speaker is a trailblazer in sport and leadership, World Athletics Council member, Abbie Hoffman. Abbie's journey began in Toronto, where at just 9 years old, she defied convention to play ice hockey with boys. An early act of courage that sparked a lifelong commitment to gender equality in sport. She went on to represent Canada in 4 Olympic Games and won a Commonwealth Games gold medal, all while pioneering change as one of the first athlete activists advocating for athletes' rights and fair support. Her influence is far beyond the track. As one of the first women elected to the World Athletics Council, Abbie has been at the forefront of expanding opportunities for women in athletics, driving governance reform, and championing integrity in the sport. Today, as a lifelong serving council member and chair of the Safeguarding Working Group, she continues to inspire generations of leaders with her commitment to equality and integrity. Please join me in welcoming Abbie Hoffman.
Good morning, everyone. Hard act to follow. lots of great words of wisdom and inspiration from the speakers before me. It's fabulous to see so many of you here, males and females, administrators, athletes, activists, enthusiasts for our sport. I felt a little bit unnerved when Seb was speaking. I think he has left the room. But I want, on the one hand, to acknowledge the incredible commitment that he has made and the thoughtful guidance and support that he has provided to everybody in this room and all of our colleagues in athletics around the world. And I was fascinated to hear him say that the progress on gender leadership is one of the things that he hopes will be a critical part of his legacy. I was a little bit unnerved, however. You may recall that he said, if you have nothing sensible to say, don't say it. My council colleagues in this room, of whom there are quite a few, are probably thinking I should take that to heart more frequently. I will do my best, but that will start after my presentation this morning. I do, however, want to echo one of Seb's other messages, which is that gender leadership is about everybody. It's about people supporting other people. It's about people understanding what leadership is all about and how they can improve their own leadership contributions by careful consideration of what they are doing and how they do it. This morning, my plan is to offer some reflections on leadership. I'm going to cite some stories from my own personal background. Some of you may find them a little bit dated. I always get a little nervous when I look around a room, and I think some of these examples I have date back to prior to the birth of your mothers. Maybe I just have a good memory, or maybe nothing new has happened in the last 50 years. I don't think that's the case. But I do want to just reflect a bit on leadership, drawn, as I say, from my own career in sport and outside sport, in Canada, and in the international sport community. And hopefully these comments will be of some value, at least for you to think a little bit about. So just before we proceed, I want to make clear that I'm eligible to deliver this speech. That is my sex certification, validation certificate from 1968. I got it for free, too. So this was issued by the IOC. The test has evolved, but not a lot, actually. It's still a sex chromatin positive SRY type test. So I guard this certificate with my life because I know it's a once in a lifetime deal, so I don't want to have to go and do it again. But just to say, a reminder that, there's not all that much new under the sun. Many things that we're struggling with today, many things that we focus on, actually some people went through some of these same kinds of issues and challenges a long time ago, and we can learn something from their experience. So just a word about my personal background here. My hockey career, in the upper left-hand corner there, has already been mentioned. It also is a little bit unnerving because I was 9 years old at the time. This was an incredible cause célèbre if you can think, in the sort of mid-1950s. That's a long time ago. But it was a very, very conservative era. And so a girl who wanted to play hockey, that's bad enough. A girl who disguised herself as a boy and joined a boys' team and played in a boys' league until I was outed. When I was selected for an all-star team and they needed my birth certificate to validate my age, this was unusual. But the problem is this has dogged me my entire life. I meet people, older people especially, in shopping malls that say, I remember you. I say, do you remember I was in the finals in Munich? No, I don't know anything about that. I remember that you played hockey. Okay. So that was how I got started. I was a very athletic person. I got into athletics. I had success almost right away. And somewhere here there's something. So by 1972, I fulfilled my ambition of breaking an Olympic record. Okay? The only problem was 7 other people did it on that day. But you can see I look to be in not too bad form there. 4 years later, not so good. This is me getting knocked out in the first round in the lower right there of the 800 in Montreal. And that really caused me to sort of shift gears and transfer a lot of my energy and enthusiasm and commitment to making change in sport. And you know what all that means, as you can see from a couple of these other pictures, giving speeches, talking, doing media interviews, trying to talk up things that have to do with making sport better, and at that time, making sport better for athletes, making sport better for women. What was ironic, and it was a lesson for me, so this photo in the bottom, in the middle, I don't want to put anybody's eye out here, but this is a photo of the opening ceremonies at the Montreal Olympics in 1976, and I was chosen to be the flag bearer. And I think anyone who's chosen to be the national standard bearer for their country at the Olympics, you know, has a fantastic feeling about it. It's an experience you'll never forget. But for me, there was something a little bit different. I had been, for the preceding 4 or 5 years, a thorn in the side of the sport bureaucracy in Canada. Here we are preparing for the Olympics. We're not getting enough support. We don't have enough coaching. We don't have enough competition and training opportunities. I was just rattling the chains and rattling the cages anywhere and everywhere I could. But in the end, the National Olympic Committee, which at that time chose the flag bearer, decided to give that honor to me. And I took that as a recognition, not necessarily grudging, but maybe a little bit grudging. The ideas that I was talking about and was working on with other athletes actually are important. And we should recognize that. We didn't like being criticized in the media. We didn't like the political campaigns. We didn't like athletes claiming that they were only eating peanut butter as they prepared for the Olympics. But we accept that this person had something to say. So that experience was one of my favorites in my career. But after 1976, I turned my attention pretty much entirely to the administration of sport, policy leadership, and making change. So some people in this room may have been in Sevilla in 1999 for the IAAF World Championships. But whether you were there or not, there was a kind of watershed moment for me and actually for the old IAAF. So these athletes depicted on this slide, Stacey Dragila from the United States, or Dragila I think is the proper pronunciation, and Emma George from Australia. Pole vaulters. Women pole vaulters. How outrageous is that? At that time, the IOC was pushing World Athletics to add more events to the competitive program for women. And pole vault was one of the events that was not yet in the formal program. But the IOC said to the IAAF, if you can show us that women's pole vaulting is kind of credible, you know, people aren't killing themselves, they're clearing credible heights, and you demonstrate that in Sevilla, we'll put this event on at the Sydney Olympics in 2000. So we had this event at the World Championships. Stacey Dragila won. She set a world record. She and Emma George having traded the world record back and forth for more than a year at that stage. She took 19 jumps in the competition. Okay? There's a lot of jumps. Sergei Bubka in the men's event a couple of days later, he took 9 jumps. He also set a world record, got the big check for world records. So we had a discussion at the council about prize money. So this was an exhibition event. Okay, exhibition event, that doesn't sound good. After a long debate, the council agreed, challenging the then president Primo Nebbiolo, that we needed to give these athletes prize money. We cannot have one event in the championships and that these people are not going to get prize money, whether it's an exhibition or whatever it is called. So the Nebbiolo relented, and the decision was that the finishers in this event would get 1/2 of the prize money that went to other events, the full-blown legitimate events on the program. So this is an example of sometimes you just have to put your money where your mouth is, or you just have to step over the line and hope for the best. So we had a council meeting the night or the day after this late night competition in this pole vault event finished. Nebbiolo, as usual, was sermonizing, commentating at great length on everything that had happened. He wasn't seeking any input from council members because that wasn't really his thing. Anyway, after he finished, I put my hand up and I said, I think we were all like unbelievably impressed, and the crowd, which stayed in the stadium, was impressed by the performance of these women pole vaulters. Don't you think we should give them the full amount of prize money? He looked at me like I had two heads. I mean, it was such a complete non-starter for him that that kind of decision would be made. But what happened was, and so even though these two women and the other top finishers didn't get the money that I think they deserved, it triggered a debate in the council, it triggered a debate in the media, it triggered a debate in the broader sport community in athletics and beyond about equal prize money. And so, to give credit where credit was due, it was from that time forward, that was the last time that there was not equal prize money for men and women. That is an important achievement. So, you know, this is one of these situations where I think we're all told, pick our moments. Well, sometimes the moment is like it just arrives and it might disappear if you don't take advantage of it. And I would say not only did Nebbiolo look at me like I had two heads, I think some of my council colleagues wondered, where did I get the temerity to challenge the president? Easy, just do it. So, moving on. Sometimes you have to do things that are just a little bit outrageous. And, you know, the story I just told about the prize money for pole vaulters in Seville was a little bit along the same lines. This is my experience at the University of Toronto, where I went as an undergrad student, one of the world's top universities, a bastion of liberal and progressive thinking and so on. Okay, this building, this lovely, you know, typical British tradition, North American tradition, ivy-coated, covered stone building. This was the student center and the athletic building on the campus. And you can see here that up at the top left, there are some guys running. So this was at the time the only indoor track in Toronto. Toronto's a cold place. So you don't have an indoor track, you're on the street in the snow and the cold. One of these athletes, by the way, was one of the most outstanding Canadian distance runners ever. So he was in there training all the time. I decided, in the absence of any other facility, that I needed to go into this building. I needed to train. So I just, you know, put on my stuff, you know, in another building. And I went into the building, and I went upstairs, and I went onto the track and started running. To cut a long story short, on 3 days in succession, I was physically escorted to the door and told, no women are allowed in this building. And in fact, women can only go and have coffee in the refectory if they're, after 5 o'clock, if they're accompanied by a gentleman, okay? So I went in 3 times, I got chucked out 3 times. Now, as it turned out, there were a lot of people in other fields, other women, who also were trying to liberate the building. They don't, I can't go to the theater? You know, I can't go to the library in the building? I can't do all kinds of things. Anyway, again, not to give the whole history, eventually, because the deal was that the building had been financed and deeded on the condition that it was for males only. Somehow or another, In the late 1970s, somebody decided, well, maybe the deed had not quite accurately been interpreted then, the endowment, and this building could be open to women. But what was interesting was that in this case, there were alliances across sport, literature, politics, all kinds of disciplines and fields, and most of us women didn't know that there was these other lobbying efforts going on. Mine got a lot of publicity because I was such a, am I allowed to use this term, shit disturber? Even then, that it kind of helped catalyze the debate, and the building was eventually opened. There's a plaque in the building. It's got a lot of commentary. I don't know what this picture is doing there, because some people may see I have a British vest on. I don't know why that is, but anyway. But there's a plaque, and it sort of commemorates this event. And there's a kind of commentary underneath. Only she who attempts the absurd can achieve the impossible. And I commend that to you. Like, you don't have to break all the furniture every day, okay? But there are times when taking things into your own hand can really make a difference, especially if you do that in alliance with other people. Okay, moving on. Okay, World Athletics by the numbers. People know what these numbers are? Anybody recognize these numbers? That's not winning lottery tickets. Don't go out and, you know, put money down. Yeah, okay. Got it. Take a bow, Edith. So these numbers are the years underneath. IAAF was formed in 1912, had 0 females on the council until 1995, when there were 2. And then you can see the progress from there, with the target in 2027 being 13, which was already achieved where it says the number is 10. So I just want to say 2 things about this. The first is that this is another case of seizing opportunities. Why did the very conservative, very authoritarian Primo Nebbiolo decide that he needed to have 2 women on the council? There never having been any before. A couple had run, but not successfully. Why did he decide that? Well, the external circumstances were that the IOC was feeling pressure. You know, look, how long can you go on running an institution or running an enterprise only with people of one sex? That was one thing. Secondly, Nebbiolo thought of the council members, if I can say this, it's a bit of a generalization, as kind of ornaments. You know, didn't really do that much. But he thought, okay, maybe if I can get a couple of really famous women athletes on the council, this will make World Athletics, or at that time the IAAF, look good. So the United States had put forward a motion in a previous Congress to have 2 women, and a graduated quota system put into place. Somehow or another, Primo Nebbiolo managed to talk the Americans out of sort of taking their, like, they could present their motion, but they weren't going to vote on it. Okay, I'm not sure what that's all about, but that was the plan. But he had a plan, and his plan was to recruit 2 very well-known women athletes. That's not me. You saw that. 8th place in Munich. That's not going to get you that much. 7th in Mexico. Not much better. He thought, okay, I need Nawal El-Moutawakel, first African gold medalist in athletics, and I need the legendary Irina Savinska. So he was kind of campaigning for these 2. And I put my name in the hat, and I went to Gothenburg, where the Congress and the championships were being held. And I happened to be sitting in my hotel, because I arrived early in the morning, and my room was not going to be ready until 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I sat there. People came in. Congress delegates came into that hotel. So I didn't really think about it. It wasn't a game plan, but I kind of started interacting with all these people. So by the time my room was ready 6 hours later, I had had a good conversation with probably 75 delegates. So in the end, Nawal was elected. She remains on the council to this day. I was elected, and Nebbiolo was furious that Savinska was not elected. So do you see what happened? 1999, 3 to make room for her. Great, go for it. Anyway, I won't detail all of this other than to say in 2019, this was the first election after the reforms of 2016, led by President Coe. This was another opportunity. This was an occasion where, because of all of the bad things that were happening in the governance of the sport, we needed to basically toss overboard the governance structures and institute something different that would be more modern, more contemporary, and more progressive. And so without a lot of prompting, the President Coe, and those of us who worked on some of the governance reforms said, oh, look, what are we waiting for? Gender equality is where we need to get to, There was a big debate about how fast we would get there. And so 2027 was the date, and there were trade-offs. There's always stuff going on behind the scenes. We all know that. But that target was not long off. And interestingly, in part because of some of the things done by the Gender Leadership Group, we got there even sooner. This is another example of just take a look at what's going on. What are the forces that can be leveraged and capitalized upon to make something happen? So I'm going to move from these stories just to a few reflections. Am I getting the hook soon? I have completely lost track of time, and I didn't start the timer. Haha, conveniently. Wrap it up? Okay. So I think we can circulate these next two slides to people, and they are the end of it. So I'll just go through these points quickly. And look, I will say, in keeping with Seb's comments about leadership and leadership skills and attributes, not being all that different for males and for females, except that many females operate in environments still where they are more isolated, and therefore it is more difficult. So, seize opportunities. Talked about that. Understand the context, the motivations, and the objectives of others. Why did Nebbiolo want change? Why did Sebastian Coe want change? And what can you make out of that to advance related agendas? Your values are critical. What do you stand for? And do people know what you stand for, not just because you talk about it, but because you act on it? Look for allies. It's my story about being chosen to be the flag bearer in 1976. There are other people out there. They may not share all of your views and all of your interests and advocacy, but they share some of them, and you can work with them. And better that than working entirely alone. Be prepared to take risks. Like, not everything works out, okay? But you have to kind of learn to live with the consequences of failure or unexpected results. But the critical thing is to learn from it, to recover, to regroup. Prepare, do your homework. If you don't know what you're talking about, you don't understand what's going on, you are not going to be as effective as you could be. It's not easy. I can tell you, I sat in the IAAF Council for years without a bloody clue what they were talking about. But I also knew that some of the things going on were just plain strange or wrong. We had a system in those days where anti-doping cases were settled at the council. And we'd have council members from particular countries sitting at the council bringing lawyers in while they argued their case as a council member in front of their colleagues. I mean, look, but it took a long time before people called that out, and that's just plain wrong. Change takes time. But as we've said, and as I've tried to note, sometimes the circumstances are such that change is quite possible. And think about your reputation. How do you want to be regarded by others? But that's by what you say, and especially by what you do. It's not by how much time you spend in the bar or how much time you spend schmoozing in the World Athletics Family Lounge. You can do that too, but have something to say while you're there. Schmoozing's not entirely bad, but it's not a strategy on its own. Sometimes I think about, and this is my last slide, what would I wish, or what would I have told my younger self? You know, if I knew what I knew now, what would I have said to myself when I was 20 or 25 or 30 or what have you? that maybe might have made me more effective and possibly less annoying. As Seb said this, you don't always have to be in the front to lead. You absolutely do not. You can find people who are on a good path that you support. Support them. You don't need to jump out and get in front of them. But in the absence of leadership, if no one else, for whatever reason, is prepared to kind of take up the challenge, put yourself out there. And that's the same as sort of being helpful. If there's a situation, you, your federation, a club, an athlete, whoever, it doesn't matter who it is, people need help, offer to help if the situation requires it. And don't waste a good crisis. Many of these situations, Seb talks about this a lot in our meetings, and advancements have occurred when something really bad is going on, and then there's a need for change. And then you can hook and hang more elements of change on the overall agenda going forward. Seb talked about this too. Intuition, it's a great guide. If something feels or looks bad, it probably is. If it looks too good to be true, it probably is. And I feel this very strongly. I sat, as did many others, in the IAAF Council, at the council table, seeing things going on, contracts that were signed, decisions that were made, people's involvement that was clearly questionable from an ethical standpoint. And I'm as guilty as, maybe not the guilty parties, but as guilty as many other council members in not putting my hand up and saying, hey, what is going on here? We cannot have an organization that operates in this fashion. So, as I say, you see something that looks wrong, it probably is. Deal with it. That's what I mean by watch out for things hidden in plain sight. Most of what happened in the IAAF from 2005 to 2015, if you go back and read the council minutes, it's all there. It's just how you look at it. Learn to adapt to pressure, okay? Just learn from athletes. Saw all those people out there last night. And that's what they're doing. They're operating in an environment of pressure. Be persistent. Pick your issues and moments and try to advance them carefully. And finally, leadership involves sharing the credit for success and shouldering the blame when things don't go well. I can tell you in my country, not to dwell on this, when Ben Johnson ran 9.79 in Seoul, some of you may have been there, and the next day was found to have been doping, I was the head of the National Sport Agency in Canada at the time. The person who was tagged, that's your responsibility, that was me. And was it? Well, maybe it was to a degree by promoting high-performance sport. I don't want to dwell on all of that. All I will say is that sometimes you will be blamed for things that you don't feel are your fault. But it's an opportunity to kind of assess and think about, well, how was I involved? And should I have done something different? So not to end on that sour note, because I have now a cheerful view of it retrospectively, thank you very much for your attention. Best wishes to all, and I look forward to the panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Just brilliant. I know we've overrun just a little bit, but it was worth it. It was so inspired. Thank you so very much. In fact, Abby's story is on the website, I believe, so people can go and have a look at that. I have to say, as amazed as I am, you have just ruined the end of the conference that I had written down. So I now need to scribble out what I was going to end with, which was, only she that attempts the absurd will achieve the impossible. And those were Abby's words, and that's on the plaque at the indoor. But I'll just scribble that out and then think about something else I could end the conference with in the next 10 minutes. We're now going to move to the panel discussion. And so I'd like to welcome to the stage a real legend, multiple Olympic and world shot put champion, and World Athletics Athletes Commission Chair, the incredible Valerie Adams. and Olympic champion and sensationally director of track and field and cross country at UCLA, Joanna Hayes. And Abby, please do take a seat. I'm assuming we just turn these microphones on, ladies. So Valerie, I'm gonna jump in right with you. Valerie Adams, for me, is one of these athletes that it's been such an inspiration to me because I was there. I watched her dominate the world as a shot putter with such grace. And I mean, I was a reporter at the time, and I'd stand there and ask for interviews. She never turned down, and she was just fantastic. And I watched her grow and then grow into this leadership role. So my question to you really is, we've spoken a lot about the importance of everybody being an ally. And so for you, in terms of helping you and supporting you into a leadership role, what was your story?
Firstly, sorry, good morning. Sorry about the voice, but you know, we won 2 gold medals for New Zealand. And you know, we're on top of Australia, so it's even better. So it's totally worth it. But thank you so much for the opportunity to be here as part of the panel. And this particular subject is so important, especially for us down under in Oceania. As for me, just I guess a bit of storytelling as to how I'm kind of like working my way through in this spaces. In New Zealand, I'm also part of the High Performance Sport New Zealand board. And as an athlete, we do everything. I call it down in the basement because that's where our training centre was. And for over 20 years, I'm training to be an Olympian, training to be the best I can be on the world stage. And you kind of see what people do in the boardrooms and the decisions they make and what does that mean. And as an athlete, you don't actually care. What you care about is bringing home medals. But now that I'm on the flip side, you kind of have the opportunity to understand. However, it wasn't easy for me to get to the boardroom. I don't know if some of you guys may know a woman by the name of Raylene Castle. And a couple of years ago, Raylene Castle approached me. She was also the CEO of Australian Rugby, and that's quite a big sport to take on as a woman. But she approached me and asked me to be a part of the board. Now, I kind of looked at it as like, I'm not good enough to be on the board with all you fancy, you know, intelligent people. What have I got to offer? You know, what have I got to offer in the leadership of sport and the decisions you guys make to help impact our sporting system? And I was very reluctant, and she asked me because she thought that I could bring a lot to the boardroom, and I declined it. And then she kind of rang me up again and was very persistent. And I saw her and I put her on this pedestal like she's untouchable, she's amazing. Everything that comes out of her mouth was like golden. And she approached me again and empowered and encouraged me, please reconsider. And I eventually said yes. I soon found out, I sat there as an observing a couple of board meetings, didn't have quite the confidence to be able to speak up. But then I soon realized they might have all the paperwork, but they didn't have the experience. They don't know what goes on ground level. They don't have no idea. They're here making decisions for athletes, but not knowing the impact it has on athletes. So all of a sudden I kind of found my voice. Now they can't shut me up. All of a sudden I found that my peers and my colleagues were actually very supportive of the fact that I was there. We're interested about what I had to say because I brought the experience of what the athletes were going through at a ground level, but it's an opportunity to make change, to break the bias, to be able to be a part of the conversation, because if you want to make change, you've got to be at the table, not making coffee for people at the table.
I love that story because it was about a woman in a powerful position recognizing and supporting another woman. And I sometimes think that is just as important as any sort of allyship, however we describe it. So thank you for that story. Joanna, how are you? Joanna has 2 athletes competing tonight. So although her face is here, although the smile is on the face and she really wants to be here, those of us in the room understand what's really going on in this woman's brain and heart right now. 2 athletes competing tonight. First of all, let's just do a quick one on that. How are you feeling about them?
I'm feeling great. I think it's a semifinal normally so Rai Benjamin, you guys may have heard of him. Semifinals are, I'm okay. We go into the first round, I just let him do what he wants. We'll talk a bit for the semi to get him prepared for the final. And Jasmine Jones is a rookie. It's her first year. She made the Olympic team last year out of college and was 4th at the Olympics. So she's actually the fastest qualifier. And it's funny because people are like, well, she ran her season best. And I'm like, yeah, but she jogged her season best in the end. So, that was just what got her here. And now I believe she's prepared for something great. So for her, I'm a little more nervous because she's still figuring things out. Just kind of like what you're saying, stepping in that room. She's on the track and learning an event that we just started a couple years ago. So every time she runs, something new is happening. And I'm seeing her growth, learning how to make the adjustments. Everything went wrong in the prelim, but only she and I know that in the heat. No one saw that, right? She did it all backwards. But she made the adjustment, and seeing that makes me proud. So I'm much more confident going into this semi, but letting her just, you go. You do these things. I'll give you a couple cues, and you do it. So for me, it's great. I'm excited. I'm thinking about it. But I asked them, their bus is at 5:30. We got time.
So as a female coach in a male-dominated environment, how important was it for you to have representation, to have another woman to follow into your path, or was it?
It was. Honestly, my collegiate coach at UCLA was Jeanette Bolden, and she was the women's head coach, and Bobby Kersey was the assistant and the volunteer coach, and they both pushed me, and they're both, and obviously you guys know Bobby is an extreme ally for women athletes and coaches. But having Jeanette as the head, I saw, wow, I can do that. And I've seen women across the country doing it for years. And even Coach Carol Smith-Gilbert, who is the head coach in the women's USA team right now and head coach at Georgia. I worked with her when I was over at USC. And seeing it happen with her live, being her assistant, and she would push me out to the point I was like, lady, this is a lot, right? But when I look back and I say, wow, the preparation that she instilled on me has been invaluable. Doing all the work, I knew I was going to be in charge one day. I had the background. It wasn't easy, but just having those women in front of me, seeing it done, really inspired me. And I knew, well, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. It's not going to be easy. It's scary. But when that phone call comes, I'm going to take it even if I'm not ready.
Abby, when you listen to these two former great athletes and now moving into different types of leadership roles, with your experience and you look at them, for you, are we moving fast enough? Or do you look at this and think, this is great, I'm proud, this is where we should be?
Well, look, we're in track and field. If you're a runner, it can never be fast enough. You can never be fast enough. Your competitors may be too fast for you. But look, I think we've made a lot of progress in a lot of areas, but we have some where we are lagging. On governance, not to call out the area presidents who may or may not be in this room, but we have yet to have an area president who is a female through the length and breadth of world athletics. We're making headway in coaching and technical roles, but we have a long way to go. Lisa Ferdinand and I saw her somewhere here. You've all seen her. She has started the majority of the races here, so we have top flight technical officials. But it is an ongoing challenge, and I think we need to do more to encourage former athletes, not just top athletes, any athlete, when they've finished their competitive days or their serious competitive days, to consider taking on some of these other roles. They don't all have to sit at meetings, 72 hours at a stretch without a break. There are lots of other fantastic things that people can do and women can do.
Valerie, let's come back to you. I think just, you've spoken a little bit about the journey specifically into you, but in general, if you were sort of to give advice on a journey and the sort of people you may want or need on a journey into leadership roles, what would your thoughts be on that?
I like to kind of talk about my bus and that bus terminology that I kind of speak about a lot. If you think about you as a leader of an organization or a federation or an area, I'm just going to relate it back to like I'm the driver of my bus and I'm heading on like a campaign heading towards the Olympics or the World Championships. You as the driver of your bus, me as the driver of my bus, must have people on my bus who are going to add value to my bus and must all be there for the right reasons, sticking to their own knitting and not for their own personal agendas. And as the driver of my bus is on the way to the Olympics or World Champs, and from time to time there's going to be obstacles, and you as the driver of your bus must stop and ask your employees or the people that's on your bus or your federation, managers, etc., you know, have them, hold them accountable for things that might come up and have those uncomfortable conversations and deal to them. And if you think as the leader, okay, listen, like you're not adding value to this bus, I'm gonna have to kick you off for a little bit and pick you up at, you know, a couple of bus stops later, but make that call, kick them off your bus and be like, this is not good enough, sort out what you gotta sort out and pick them back up. And then if they're not at it, like if they're not gonna make those changes, kick them right off and replace them. Everybody on that bus is irreplaceable, including the leaders of the bus. Now, as an athlete, the only person that's irreplaceable is the athlete and is the driver. So on my bus, for example, we're going to the Olympics. I'm on my bus, I'll have my physio, my chiropractor, nutritionist, coaches, S&C coaches, the kids. Sometimes partners come and go. You can kick them off and not bring them back on. But the only people that are irreplaceable is myself and the children. And on my journey, I've had to kick people off and not bring them back on. Because once this bus gets to the Olympics, the only person that gets off that bus to perform is me. And the results that come out of that competition has an impact on the people on my bus. If I do well, their livelihoods are saved. If I don't do well, the media doesn't crucify them, they crucify me. But as a leader of your area, as a leader of your federation, turn around and look on who's on your bus. Are they adding value to your federation, or are they there for their own personal agendas?
Brilliant.
And I get it. It can be uncomfortable, but you got to hold people accountable. Do they have passion for our sport? Our sport is not about money making. We're here for a passion. For me, honestly, my driver is to grow the sport, is to empower everybody. I'm from New Zealand, yes, but I'm also Tongan. I understand the struggles in smaller islands. But understand your people, understand their language, understand their culture, understand their religion, but help them to empower their own federation. But if they're not going to do that, have the balls to call them out. That's just it for me. So as a top Pacific Tongan woman, I want to be able to create change for the betterment of our sport, especially within my area, but also globally. So I hope you guys are able to drive your bus, and as the driver of your bus, area presidents of your federation, have the power to kick people off, but understand the agenda and have the buy-in from your people and your staff.
Brilliant. I am going to open up to some question and answers. I'm going to do 2 more questions, and then it's over to you to please ask anything you want. So Joanna, you know, from a coaching perspective, because leading into this, I was always sort of speaking to different people about their thoughts. And a question was put to me of, well, are there any female coaches who wanted to become coaches and couldn't? And I sort of stood back and thought, okay, well, that's a fairly decent question. I'm going to ask Joanna that question when I get on the panel, and there you go. So, you know, obviously director at UCLA now, and you've got a lot of power from an administration perspective, as well as being a very successful coach. Is the journey for women to become coaches that difficult? I'm playing devil's advocate here. And if so, why? And if it's not, why?
First of all, I'm going to steal the bus when I get back. Cause I'm a driver of a bus. Apparently, I'm also on a bus. So I got to figure out how to not get kicked off the bus and also drive the bus and put the appropriate people on the bus. So I'm going to be working on that. So thank you for that, Valerie. But yeah, I think a lot of women who aspire to be coaches, I think part of it starts with being afraid of not being valued and accepted. I've spent a lot of time, and to this day, it happens much less frequently, but the imposter syndrome sets in, right? am I good enough? Oh, this won't happen. And you get a good one. Oh, I just got lucky. This person's just really good, or I'm just helpful. Like, we are women being coaches are so instrumental in so many different avenues of coaching, right? And this takes nothing from male coaches, because I believe if you can be a coach, you can be a coach whatever gender you are. If you have passion for it, if you care, if you have knowledge, if you are willing to continue to grow and to continue to ask the questions and learn every day, you can be a great coach regardless of your gender, right? But as women, we offer something additional, right? We offer that maternal thing that as an athlete, we kind of need that, right? I was an athlete at a top level. There was things that I'm like, sometimes you just need that maternal instinct to say, either give you a hug or say, hey, shut up, you got this, right? It comes different sometimes from a woman. But I think that as we have grown up, women are like, I'll be a youth coach. I can just be a youth coach. They're just little, it's okay, right? I think levels of coaching scare us sometimes, because we feel these men are not going to accept us. And a lot of times they haven't over the years. It has taken the pioneers of the world of women coaches to show us that it can be done. And we cannot be afraid of someone closing the door. And I think a lot of women have had that door closed and are afraid to kick it open. Because if you close the door on me, I'm kicking it open. You can arrest me. You can do what you want. Replace the lock. I don't care. I'm coming in, because you can't stop me, because they need me, right? You'll have, as recruiting, you'll have kids say, well, I've never had a female coach. I'm just a little bit scared of having a female coach. Years ago, Trayvon Bromell had a conversation with him, and he said he always had a woman coach, and he was a little nervous about having a male coach, right? So it doesn't matter what the gender is, it's the experience. So for me, my message to women is get involved at any level. The more we have at the youth level, the more they're used to it. When they go to high school, they're not like, oh, it's a female coach. When they go, if you're a high school coach, an age group coach, when they get to college, they're not like, oh, but that's a woman coach. I've never had one, right? So it's really about numbers, because kids know what they see, how they grow, to the point of when they say kids are not born racist, they're not. It's an experience. It's how they're raised. If kids have female coaches, they're not wondering, oh, maybe I should have a male. They're used to it, right? So it is just the ground level. Get in, encourage women to be coaches, show that it can be done at every level of every gender. I coach, again, tonight, a male and a female in the 400 hurdle semifinals. I coach them the same, but also different. But I'm a woman, and they both, neither, Ryan doesn't say, well, I have a girl coach, so I'm not sure if I'm ready. He doesn't look at me as a female coach. He just looks at me as his coach.
Can I just jump? You said something really enlightening to me, because even when that statement was made to me, it was only something you just said, which is going to put up there. I know I'm going to get the eye for the time, but I have to just stay on this for a little bit. You have a unique personality, I think it's safe to say, about Joanna Hayes. I believe she would knock down a door if it was closed, no doubt about it. However, what you've just said, I think, is very important, in that we speak about men being advocates and allies, etc. And there's some obvious ways and they can do that. But what you've just said to me, which I think is very enlightening, said to everybody, is one of the ways men can support is understanding that as brilliant as a female coach is, there may be this thing called imposter syndrome. There may be something, a slight knock in the confidence, and that is the thing that you need to support. Not support her brilliance, she is brilliant. Not support her intellectual capability, that is there, but understanding, because the space is not there, sometimes this syndrome kicks in. And am I right in what you're saying, in that if men in positions of power can understand that, that is really understanding how to support?
Absolutely. You have to encourage the coaches, encourage the women. And you did this, you helped this. This wasn't an accident. You know, you get like, you are good enough. If you've done it once, you can do it again. And understand that you will make the mistakes. It will not be perfect. But see, I think women, we don't like making mistakes. We don't like, oh no, that was wrong. Because they're going to look at me and they're going to say, you messed up. We're not going to let you back in. Men make mistakes all day. Sorry, guys, but you do. Right? And we bail you out. Constantly bailing you out from the back. So allow us to be upfront, okay? Allow us to be upfront and let our mistakes be just like yours, normal part of life. Do not condemn us for our mistakes.
Abby, I have such admiration for you, and one of the things I do think about is because you've been at the forefront of change for so long, is that do you get fed up? Do you just get fed up of everybody talking? Everybody, we've seen the problem since 19-something. We've identified the problem. We know it, we've had a meeting. We have a meeting about the meeting. Then we have a meeting about the meeting about the meeting. Abby, are you fed up?
You know, on one of my slides, I had the word resilience there, and it was there for a reason, because it's not hard to be discouraged. I mean, you see things happen, and then, you know, you go out in the hallway at a break in a meeting and say, you know, we discussed the same thing last year, the year before, 10 years ago, whenever. Why are we, you know, tilling this same soil? We need to move on. But look, you know, if we are tilling the same soil, there's a reason for it, because nobody's come up with the path forward that's going to get us out of that. And I think that the resilience part is we got to work on a better way. Because otherwise, you just throw up your hands and say, I can't stand it. You know, we've been over this ground. And, you know, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it again. Having said that, repeating history, yeah, it can get kind of tiresome. But when I look all up, you know, this is a real Canadian thing. Okay, so you guys know about the hammer throw? Yeah, okay. You know about Canada and hammer throwing. But, you know, for me, it was kind of interesting to sit there last night, the night before, when Cameron Rogers won the women's hammer throw, and think about the discussions about why the hammer throw for women, and then, you know, all through the 1980s and 1990s was kind of a venal idea, the work of the devil. Why in the world would anybody want that? And then, you know, see such a profoundly successful and focused athlete and athletes in that field accomplishing what they did. So you know, you have to take and savor the victories and the progress where it is. And some things will move fast, and you probably shouldn't take credit for them because other circumstances caused that to happen. Some things move slow, and you're putting your shoulder to the wheel and, you know, not getting any traction. But, you know, it's like being an athlete who trains. I mean, not every workout has an immediate payoff. You know, it's an accumulation. And I guess you kind of have to have that mindset to keep your sanity.
I'd like to open any questions out from the floor now. Anything at all? There's a microphone coming to you.
Hello, everybody. My name is Otoye. I'm from Nigeria. This question is more for Abby, but I also like Valerie to answer it. There is a solidarity movement that the United Nations took on. It's called the He for She. So I would kind of like you to go into that, because from where I come from, like, you usually have most of the guys that are in top leadership, and you find out that if you as a woman would want to progress, it would be better for you to have a guy that would pull you up, because like you said, most of the time women, we have this imposter syndrome, because our women are a bit different from men in terms of the men, they make mistakes and, like, it's part of life, they just move on. But we kind of like go back, sit down, try to evaluate, and, you know, kind of take too much time thinking about what we did wrong. So what would you say to that, especially in track and field, the he for she, where we would need to get the guys to understand first, women are not the same as men, whether we agree with that or not, most of us, and pulling them, using them to help those women to be able to, you know, go into that leadership. I'm an example of that. It's because of the leadership, the male leadership in sports, that I am here, that I do this thing. They brought me up. I probably would not have want to put myself out there. They're like, oh, you are doing this. Come and, you know, go to the front. So I would give credit to them for doing that for me. And I understand that there are women that can do that, but I'm saying because we know that, especially in the part of the world where I come from, most of the men are the ones that are in that leadership. So what would you say to that he for she movements in track and field.
I can start briefly. I know of the program. I don't know the details of it, and I think your commentary is really helpful and illuminating. I think that what I would say generally is that it's great to get support, to be supported, to take support, to be mentored by other people, but you need to stop short of that becoming a dependency relationship. You need to be ultimately your own person. And I think it is the case in many parts of the world. I don't want to generalize about Africa or West Africa or any part of the globe, that there's support for women to get to a certain point, and then they become a bit threatening. And the barriers, both subtle, very subtle sometimes, and more visible, come into play. So I think that take advantage of that support where it's offered, but be alert to somebody capping that support and actually aiming to thwart further progress. And then that's when you've got to reach out to other people. They could be women, they could be other men who are more open. But I know that's a tough role. There is a ceiling, it's not a glass ceiling, it's a steel ceiling in many parts of the world, and all we can do is just keep working away on it. But I like the attitude that you expressed on and the understanding you have of the dynamic, because it is real, as you said.
Yeah, and just to go on that, there is a seal, however, you need to be your own person, but within our sport of track and field, our leadership has helped us get to where we are today, so that's a step in the right direction. But equally, us women, you can get pushed down 10 times, you get up 11 times, so we just got to keep fighting for what we believe we need, we want, and how we can kind of value ourselves. But it all comes down to leadership. It all comes down to the person that's empowering or opening up spaces or creating spaces for women to succeed, but we cannot always rely on that. You're a very powerful, strong woman, I could see, and it's up to you to then, how do you inspire the next generation of people coming through your own federation, your own system, to be, leaders? And that's, I think, for us, everybody in this room, whether you're a male or female, identify those athletes, especially those female athletes who can be amazing leaders within our sport, and don't feel threatened by them. Actually bring them on the journey, because at the end of the day, we're all going to cark it. We need good leaders to be able to carry on within our own federations. But I think sometimes within federations, they do feel maybe a sense of that their positions are threatened. No. Open the spaces, bring them along on the journey. Use your experience to help empower them.
And let's face it, Valerie, you can always kick them off the bus, can't you? I mean, Any other questions from the floor, please? Anything else? One just here at the back, lovely. Could say your name would be great before you start.
Bonjour tout le monde. Vous allez me pardonner, je vais parler en français. J'espère que je suis Louisette René.
I'm so sorry, if you just 1 minute, because we rudely were not prepared. Is it possible for someone to translate quickly rather than us do this? Because that's going to take a moment.
Yes, we will over here on this mic.
Amazing.
Oh, I want this one.
So please go again, and please a little slowly, because somebody's going to translate for us. Then we don't have to faff about. Oh, there. Maybe not.
Merci. Je suis Louisette René Toby. Je représente la Fédération camerounaise d'athlétisme. Je suis une Olympienne.
All right, so we have a representative from the Cameroonian Federation. She's an ex-Olympian.
Je vais d'abord féliciter l'idée de World Athletics d'organiser ce type de panel et ces échanges. On en a besoin.
She actually congratulates World Athletics for these great initiatives as regarding the topic of gender leadership. It's a great initiative.
Et dans une autre vie, je suis un manager, dont je pense humblement que je suis un leader, mais de chez nous, en Afrique, que c'est surtout francophone, il y a beaucoup de barrières. Et quand je vois tous les programmes de World Athletics, et même pas seulement World Athletics, même dans d'autres fédérations, je pense qu'il est temps qu'on fasse des choses spécifiques pour nos populations, nos athlètes, nos femmes, parce qu'il y a beaucoup de barrières culturelles.
So she's a leader and a manager in Africa, in a French-speaking country. So the context is it's different there. There are different challenges and barriers in French-speaking African countries.
Et c'est pour cela que moi, je n'aurai pas de questions, mais je souhaiterais vraiment que vous, qui êtes en contact avec les jeunes, que ce soit pour l'entraînement, que ce soit pour l'administration, je pense qu'il faudrait qu'au niveau des fédérations internationales, qu'on pense une éducation particulière aux femmes dans notre zone.
There is no specific question. It's more of an observation and probably a call to action to have a specific course training or initiative for women who are leaders in African countries. As said before, those challenges are a bit different and they need more support.
First of all, thank you for bringing this to our attention. While you were speaking, Stephanie Hightower made a point to me, and I think it's an absolute brilliant point based on your question, which is, in just a few minutes, we're going to have a breakout session. And in that breakout session, you are all going to be able to raise points and then have specific things that you intend to achieve when you leave. And in that breakout session, Stephanie has already specifically said she will speak to you about it. And together, it's one of those things that we need to think about. How do we support not just the general topic of what we're talking about, but how it differentiates between the different cultures and the different parts of the world, since that's exactly what we are, world athletics.
Pour terminer, je vais profiter de la tribune. Nous organisons avec mes sœurs anglophones africaines du Women Sports Network Africa la première conférence internationale Femmes et Sport. J'espère que World Athletics viendra à Dakar les 7 et 9 décembre pour continuer à mener ces réflexions qui sont plus que importantes pour nous. Merci.
To finish the message, there will be a conference organized in December, from the 7th till 11th December, by the organization called Sports Women Network. So this will be set up by French and English-speaking African federations. So there is I hope that the World Athletics can endorse endorse this event.
Thank you so much. We've got time for one more question before we close this section of the conference. Any more questions for Abby, Joanna, or Valerie?
I have a question mainly it's a statement for the two female coaches who are sitting up there. How does it feel? And you can tell me, because I used to be a coach myself, and it wasn't easy being a female coach, and I know there's so much that I can give to athletes, because I have coached a world junior champion, an Olympic champion, and a world champion from scratch from my track club, and I was an NCAA Coach of the Year at the University of Tennessee in the SEC. At times, I've had different persons who have contacted me for coaching, or even athletes from my country. And I think I've just been through so much that at times, I feel the part of me that wants to coach is not as strong as the part of me that do not want to coach. But there are times I feel guilty because I feel like, okay, you need to give back to your country. Your country has given you so much based on where you're coming from. But when you're dealing with persons within the same atmosphere as you, and they're not showing you, it's almost like they're pulling against you, it becomes extremely difficult to want to put yourself out there to coach or to even do more to give back to a country who has given you so much. And I just want to know if any of you had faced those obstacles, and if you did, how were you able to overcome it? Because I'm telling you, it's not easy at all.
Well, I think with you, is this on? Oh yeah, you've given so much, right? And there's an expectation of you. I think you put a lot of that on you to give back, right? And I would say for you, number one, you have to know within you. You can't worry about the expectation from them or even yourself to give back. You can give back in the way that is most comfortable for you, where you feel you're most valued, and you can give the most, because it could be coaching, it could be something different. And I think that everyone in this room and across the world has something to offer, but it has to be what you want to give, because then you're not fully in it. If you're not all in the coaching, you're not giving everything you have. And at some point you can be resentful of the athletes, of the federation, of the country, right? But if it's something that's fully in you, then you push forward, and you can't worry about what they think or what they expect, because now you have made this your passion and your desire. And if it's your passion and your desire, it doesn't matter. Nobody can tell you anything, because you're just going to ignore it, right? Because if you feel that's what you're here for. But if that's not in you, if you don't feel that if I can't give everything in me to this, I'll find another way. Because any way that you want to give back, they're going to accept, because of what you've done and how important you've been to your country. Like, you've done it, you've done everything, right? So it just has to be within you. It has to be in you. For me, coaching, I think there's been barriers in terms of people saying, oh, I could do it better. Why are you with her? I can coach you better, right? Those I had to learn to shut out the noise, because there's always going to be noise, and there's always somebody that can do it better, right? There's always somebody that could have done a much better job with Rye, right? But they haven't coached him. They haven't been in the trenches with him. They have no idea his personality. They see what they see from the outside, right? So at the end of the day, for me personally, when there's been the noise and when there's been the couch coaches, as we call them, I had to shut them out. And I've actually called on one time I had to call Sue Humphreys, one of our best coaches, and I had to tell her, like, this is driving. I know the answer to this, and I know I shouldn't feel this way, but I needed her to tell me not to feel that way or to do what I already knew. I needed that reinforcement from her, right? So at the end of the day, it has to be in you. And if it's in you, then the noise doesn't matter.
Sorry.
And also coaching is like a passion project. I mean, you do it for the love as well and the challenge. But more importantly, you got to have trust. Your athlete's got to trust you, and you got to trust your athlete. Because if there's no trust there and people are getting in their ear, there's actually no point. So if you feel like, you're not, that they don't trust the process or they don't trust in you as a coach, you also got to make that call. Because at the end of the day, you guys are just pulling teeth. And then you start getting resentful and hateful towards each other. In New Zealand, we don't have the luxury of like hundreds of coaches or anything like that. So it is a real passion project. For us, it's about getting volunteers, empowering them, getting them involved in kids' athletics to be a part of the sport. So our challenge is a little bit different. It's actually trying to find people than it is for you guys. But at the end of the day, I kind of see it as a passion project. You do it for the love of the sport, wanting to get people better. But ultimately, you got to trust both of you, because they have that trust and got to cut out the noise somehow. So make sure that coach on your bus is the coach that you want.
I'm going to end on, I think, what could be a controversial statement. I'm going to go through all three of you to very quick wrap up on what I'm about to say. For me, it comes down to, obviously, this is about advancing women in all areas of sports. And for me, because it is harder for us, for me, the one word is resilience. So I'm going to come to each of you, and I'm going to throw a few statements out there as women moving into coaching, into leadership roles. Childcare, raising children, menopause, got to be said. If we don't say it and we don't talk about it, because it's part of what we have to do, and we still have to succeed. It's harder. So let's not ignore it. If we're going to be the best, we're going to be who we say we are, let's put it on the table. So childcare, raising children, going through all of that, plus the menopause, plus everything else we've already mentioned. You know, not about me. Abby.
Well, I'm not 100% sure I know what your question is, but if you're asking that we illuminate these issues, pay more attention to them, and act on them where it's reasonable for us to do so. Is that what you're...
Yeah, so my question is, with those statements that I've made, I guess, what is the one word we'd leave everybody is? What is the statement we would leave everybody with to accept all of that and still succeed?
Well, I mean, you gave the word resilience. I mentioned it in my remarks. I really believe in that. I think a lot of it is awareness. So it may be resilience on the part of the person who is dealing with those stages of life. It may be awareness on the part of other people who are not, but they at least know what the bigger picture is. And I would, I said this, I would commend awareness of the bigger picture to everybody. You've got to know what the environment is in which you and your colleagues, close and far, are dealing with.
Brilliant, thank you.
Well, I'm trying to find a word because I'm in perimenopause, and so I'm foggy. And so it's funny because I put in my notes to bring that up. So I'm glad you brought it up, Connie, because I do talk about it a lot with my staff and with my athletes. I tell them all the time, look, I don't know what to say. I can't find a word. Just like, be patient with me. So patience might be the word. And I tell my staff, you guys, it's going to be a rough road. I'm telling you right now. I might say weird stuff. I might forget. I will. I got a great DOPS. But at the end of the day, and I have 2 daughters, and they're teenagers, 7th and 9th grade. So I'm dealing with them, teenagers, perimenopause, being in charge, being a woman, right? Professional athletes and collegiate athletes, and everyone's crazy, right? So at the end of the day, I've decided that they're the crazy ones, and I'm the normal one, right? So, but I think it is, and I put it on my Instagram, and I got a couple TikToks I'm working on to put it out, because at the end of the day, for me, we've been afraid to talk about these things. We've been embarrassed. I will say I was running late this morning because I got a guest, and I had her. She came 2 weeks ago, and I don't know why she's here now, and it's hot in Tokyo and it's humid. That's not fair for me. But that's what I'm dealing with. So when I have an attitude, that's why. Because I'm this ridiculous, right? So y'all be patient with us. And we're just going to keep going because we've been doing it for hundreds of years. But now it's time that we talk about it so people can say, you know what? I'm going to leave you alone. You're perimenopausal. I'm just going to turn away. Leave me alone.
Valerie.
I'll come and have a chat to you about perimenopause in a minute. To be honest, as a single mother of 2 young children, I have a daughter, and I want to be able to empower her and use my platform to empower not only females around the world, but my people, my Polynesian people in Oceania. It's for them to see people in their own likeness. I think that's somewhat, this is a possibility. You're inspired to be that, to do that, because sometimes you are kind of discouraged a lot. So I, myself, as a mama, Polynesian mother, very strong Polynesian mama, is to make sure my daughter grows up having someone because they want them, not because they need them, feeling empowered to speak up when they need to, but also be that reinforcement, not only for them, myself, but all our people all around the world. So thank you so much for this opportunity to be a part of this panel, really.
Ladies, the panelists, weren't they brilliant? So we're going to just have a moment now where I'm going to invite Stephanie Hightower to